What celebrities are complete a-holes in real life? I saw Liv Tyler walk into an art exhibit at the MoMA that was one person at a time. The wait was literally 4 to 5 hours to get in, and people would show up hours before the gallery opened to see it. When Liv Tyler walked in, she cut in front of everyone and told the guard that she was next. He told her she was not, that accommodations could be made ahead of time for busy people or VIPs, but that she couldn't just cut in front of everyone with no warning. She threw a fit and argued with him about who she was. He just shrugged and she stormed off. About 20 minutes later, Orlando Bloom showed up. Guard told him the same thing and he said, "That's fair. I totally get it," and spent some time signing autographs. Class act, that one. Similar. My friend was the doorman for a record store in LA. The store was having an in-store concert, forgot who, but was at max capacity. Beck walked up and asks if he could come in. My friend told him sorry, and Beck replied, "Ah man, it's cool. I'll come by a little later to see if any space freed up." When face to face, my friend didn't recognize it was Beck, thinking it was just some dude. It wasn't until other people standing at the door said, "Holy crap, you just turned away Beck," that my friend realized who he was just speaking to. My wife was working in a restaurant years ago. Maria Shriver came in and asked to be seated. My wife told her it would be 45 minutes. "Do you know who I am?" she asked with a super itchy tone. "Yeah, you're Maria Shriver. It will be 45 minutes," answered my wife. 45 minutes, I'm afraid. "Do you know who I am?" "No. I'm Maria Shriver." "Oh. 55 minutes. This reminds me of the story a friend of mine told back when he was a reservationist at the hottest restaurant in SF at the time. This woman calls up requesting a table that night at peak dining time. My friend apologizes and tells her that the next available seating they have is not for another 3 months. The woman says, "Don't you know who I am? I am Joan Chen." My friend replies, "Honey, this is San Francisco. There are more Joan Chens in the phone book here than there are fish in the bay." Julia Roberts. I worked on a photo shoot with her and all I got to say is wow. From the moment she showed up to the moment she left, screaming at everyone about everything. An absolute hitch to the nicest people who didn't do anything to deserve it. Apparently that is how she always behaves when there's no cameras on her. Lost every ounce of respect I had for her after that day. It's pretty known that Steven Spielberg hates her because she was a pain in the ass to work with on the set of Hook. She was in her early 20s at the time and acted like a spoiled little brat. I guess she never grew out of that. Apparently him and the crew called her Tinker Hell. Did PR for a movie distribution company. I would set up interviews and whatnot. The two biggest dongs were Tommy Lee Jones and Mike Myers. Two nicest, Will Smith and Viggo Mortensen. Viggo Mortensen just seems like the coolest, most laid back man ever. Not sure how much of a celebrity he is, but that kid who played Ferguson on Clarissa Explains It All. He was at space camp the same time I was. Everybody hated how conceited he was. At first, I was all like, that's kinda cool. But after the first few sentences came out of his mouth, I didn't want to meet him anymore. I just wanted to punch him in his throat. Space Camp and Clarissa Explains It All being in the same story is very 90s. Kevin James is the biggest a-hole. Buddy of mine was a waiter for him and when he asked him if he wanted anything to drink, Kevin responds, "You were told not to speak to me." Apparently his guards tell all the waiters to stay a distance from him. "You were told not to speak to me. I didn't know life worked that way, Kevin. You were told not to speak to me. Yeah, so? Do want a drink or not?" Rachel Ray, Notaris B. I.T.C.H. My cousin worked in marketing for a cracker brand she was selling. She comes in for a photo shoot wearing a low-cut blouse that revealed a good amount of cleavage when she bent over. They asked if she could change clothes, because a lot of the photos couldn't be used. She immediately blew up and was cursing at everyone. Even though the photos were for ads aimed at kids and mothers, because she was such a bitch, they couldn't get her to understand what was wrong. Eventually they just used the photos and had to Photoshop in clothing to make it appropriate for the ad campaign. I have never heard anybody who has met William Shatner ever say a nice thing about him. Which is weird, because he just has the face of a person who seems likable to me. I've heard a lot of people say Adam West was a huge dong, but I met him more than once, and he was incredibly kind, complimented my outfit, let me take a picture with him, and gave me an autograph. I try not to bother people, and I hated being that guy, even when I was younger and dumber. But he was at a convention when I did stop him, and he was incredibly cool with it. I've heard a lot of people say Adam West was a huge dong. You probably heard that wrong. They were probably saying Adam West has a huge dong. Was at San Diego Comic Con a few years back, crossing the street to get to the main con area, and there was a black SUV stopped waiting to turn. Everyone was looking at the window as they passed, and when I got up there I heard a familiar voice, Adam West. He was complimenting passerby cosplayers and telling everyone to have a great day, that they were going to have so much fun. Very cool moment. Steven Seagal. Obviously, Steven Seagal is notorious for kicking stuntmen and the junk. He finds it hilarious. He's also been known to have hospitalized stunt performers in the past, sending some for surgery. I have a ton of friends in the stunt industry and one told me a story about a time Seagal arrived to set late and in a bad mood. He refused to practice the stunt. During the taping, he was supposed to throw a stunt performer through a cabinet head first that had been prepared to break. Instead, he drove the guy's top teeth through a portion that wasn't prepared to break. This broke the stuntman's maxilla, upper jaw, and knocked out most of his teeth. The guy has been through multiple surgeries since the incident. Seagal just left like a freaking prick. No apologies. He should have sued. Frick Steven Seagal. Fairly certain stuntmen sign their leaves away 100x over before the scene starts. As far as I know, there are limits to how much you can sign away and I'd be fairly surprised if something like that could be signed away. Mariah Carey. She gets away with being a diva because people love it when she slays people, but she's actually a huge itch. She's constantly bringing down other women in the music industry, and people hate working with her because her demands are too high. She came into my job, got seated in a section completely away from the rest of the restaurant, which makes sense. When the server would ask her a question, she didn't say a word. She would just shake or nod her head, but didn't talk to my coworker. Didn't want anyone walking through her little personal area of the restaurant unless they needed to be there. Ordered some stuff that her kids didn't even touch so it was thrown away cause it touched the table. And she wanted to take her alcoholic drink to go, which you can't do. She tipped like 20% though. I dunno. I have a very nagging feeling that I'd end up like that if I were to reach her level of fame. Imagine not even being able to go to 7-Eleven to get a drink without being mobbed by paparazzi and fans. A public image to keep up with. Every word spoken and photograph scrutinized. Honestly, the diva behavior is sickening, but like I said, I can see myself falling into that pit. On that note, there are major celebrities who seem to be able to carry on day-to-day lives relatively fine. I think people like Adam Sandler can safely put on a pair of shorts and a tee, drive to McDonald's and order a drive-thru without any issue. Keanu Reeves. Perfect example. People always notice him, but every interaction seems to be 100% positive and almost like organic. Like if you meet Keanu it was just supposed to happen that day. Seems like a real genuine laid-back guy. Wendy Williams. Her mouth is like a clogged toilet. Only shoots come out. Heard her interview on a radio show. The host asked how he could be successful like her and she said, "You will never be Wendy Williams," and walked out. I saw Burt Reynolds once at an airport, and he wouldn't even co-sign on my sister's mortgage. My mum used to work in a jeans store back in the late 70s, shortly after Smokey and the Bandit came out. Burt Reynolds walked in wearing a cowboy hat and asked to try some jeans and then bought a couple pairs. Mum said she was ringing him out when she just couldn't help but say take off your hat, and he devilishly smiled and said, "I only take that off for one thing." He signed the receipt for her and she still has it to this day. One of her favorite stories to tell. Gene Simmons. Today I learned basically every celebrity other than Keanu Reeves is an a-hole. Whoever handles his PR is doing a hell of a job. And Tom Hanks. Just like Christopher Titus said, if you see Tom Hanks punch a nun you automatically think what did that nun do to Tom Hanks? And Terry Crews. Steve Harvey. What a complete donghead. Doesn't he also only communicate through his entourage? I remember hearing a story where he wouldn't talk to waiters directly, instead someone from his entourage would talk for him even though Harvey was literally right there. But he is a good Christian man though. He must have a good moral barometer. I know for a fact that Catherine Zeta-Jones is a rich who treats regular people like complete shoot in real life. I used to work at Mandalay Bay in 2002 and she expected you to wait hand and foot on her and then zero tip for anything you did. An oversight is one thing, as we understand that it happens with celebrities, but not to this extent. Jeremy Piven is also a major a-hole in real life. When I was working at a cafe in Brentwood back in 2005, he was notorious for being a dong to all the waitresses there. So much so that he had to be removed on more than one occasion.